The fog hung low and heavy, curling between the blackened trees and broken concrete like a living thing. Ryder stood in the center of the old road, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the silhouette ahead. A tall, broad figure with a dozen men loosely spread behind him, half seen through the thick white veil. The raider leader stepped forward, boot leather scraping grit. His face came into focus, sun-cracked, lean, marked by a half-healed scar along his jawline. The kind of face that had seen too much, done worse. He stopped a few paces out of sword range, arms relaxed at his sides but far from empty. A curved blade hung loose in his hand, like it was born there. "You're a hard man to find," the raider said, voice casual, even amused. "Thought maybe you'd gone and died out here." Ryder didn't move, didn't blink. Just the wind between them and the low groan of fog brushing the twisted tree branches. The raider grinned. "But I guess if you died, I wouldn't be getting paid." Still nothing from Ryder, just the sharp cut of his breath, the dull thud of his heart measured and steady. "You know," the man went on, pacing a slow half circle, "you could have made this easier. You left a trail even a half-blind dog could follow. Caravan folks say you're a ghost. Hunters say you're cursed. But I say," he stopped, eyes narrowing, "you're just a man, one my employer wants." Ryder shifted slightly, not in fear, not in doubt, but like a blade tilting in the wind, finding the angle to strike. The raider saw it and chuckled. "Don't get any ideas. I ain't here to throw down with some wasteland legend. I'm just doing my job." His fingers tightened on his hilt. "Your brother wants you back. Didn't say why, didn't care to. Just made one thing clear." He raised his blade slightly, fog glinting along its edge like moonlight. "I can bring you back dead. Or alive." Ryder's silence deepened, but behind his eyes something changed, a shift like storm clouds thickening before the break. The raider looked over his shoulder at his men, gestured without turning his back. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We've got numbers. You're one man." Stillness, the kind that drips with something coming, not fear, not retreat. Something else. A sound cut through the fog, not words, not warning. Boots, steel, fury. From the mist behind the raider, three shapes burst forth like wild dogs unleashed, cries drowned in the crash of motion and violence. The leader barely turned before it was on him. Ryder moved then, fast, clean, brutal, his sword sliding free like a whisper of death. The raider's scream was the match. Steel hissed from scabbards, boots pounded wet earth, and Ryder was already moving. A blur of raw muscle and iron will cutting through the white shroud. He met the first attacker head-on, sword raised. The clang of impact echoed through the trees, followed by the sharp, wet crunch of a blade finding flesh. Ryder didn't stop. He pivoted, dragging his sword free from the dying man, and slammed a gauntleted fist into the next raider's face. Bone snapped. The man dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. A third raider lunged from the side. Ryder shifted his footing, letting the blade scrape off his chest plate. He caught the man's arm mid-swing, yanked him forward, and drove his sword hilt first into his throat. The raider gagged, fell, and didn't rise. The fog boiled with motion. From the trees came a sharp whistle. Mickey exploded into the clearing like a thunderclap, slamming his sword through a raider mid-turn. Blood sprayed in an arc, misting the air. "Ryder!" he shouted, eyes scanning the chaos. "6!" Ryder growled. Mickey nodded, already tracking two of them flanking through the mist. Oakley was next, emerging like a shadow, low and fast. He ducked under a swing, slashed upward, then spun and buried his blade into the lower back of another raider. The man howled and fell to his knees. Oakley didn't wait. He kicked him forward and used his body as a shield to charge another. On the far right, Ellie burst into the fray with her spear sweeping in wide, clean arcs. She fought with a cold grace, her strikes surgical, deadly. One raider tried to block. She batted his blade aside and impaled him through the gut. Another came from behind, but she twisted, used her spear's shaft to catch his arm, and drove the butt into his nose. He went down hard. Fog lit up with flashes of steel, grunts, screams, and the bone-splintering sounds of combat. Ryder locked blades with the leader. The man was strong, trained. Their swords clashed again and again, each strike ringing out like a bell of war. The raider snarled, "He wanted you broken." Ryder shoved him back with a roar and slammed his elbow into the man's jaw. "No one breaks me," he hissed. Elsewhere, Mickey disarmed one raider and jammed the hilt of his blade into the man's temple. He spun, parried a wild swing, then slashed across his opponent's chest, slicing leather and skin in one brutal cut. The raider collapsed in a heap. Oakley had taken a cut across the arm, but was still standing, blood soaking his sleeve. He drove his knee into a raider's stomach, kicked his leg out from under him, and stabbed down with a final grunt. Ellie moved in beside Ryder, flanking a raider who was trying to get a shot at him. Without a word, she swept low and sliced the man's hamstring. He dropped, screaming. She finished him with a thrust to the throat and moved on. The ground was slick with blood. Fog swirled with heat and breath and steam. Of the 12 raiders, only a few were left, battered, panicked, retreating into the trees. The leader stumbled, blood dripping from his brow, facing Ryder alone. He spat. "It was never just about you. He wants you dead." Ryder stepped forward, but something shifted. The fog behind the raider thickened and moved. The leader blinked. "What?" A clawed hand, impossibly large, black and glistening with moisture, reached from the white and seized him by the waist. It lifted him off the ground like a rag doll. Everyone froze, even the dying raiders turned wide-eyed. "No!" The leader screamed as the claw jerked back, dragging him into the fog. His boots kicked once, twice, then vanished. Silence, then a single distant scream, and then nothing. They all moved together, back to back, looking into the fog, weapons ready. But nothing. Ryder speaks, "Let's head back to Springwater and keep your eyes on the fog and stay aware."